Alright, so maybe this is better. I'm not sure.
Nope.
Who is she and where did she come from?
The input levels on this thing doesn't seem to be...
Her name is Malan.
No.
Nay Malan.
Oh yes, girls, gays and theys. Please welcome Nay Malan.
Alright, good day and welcome to Old and Jaded. My name is Nay Malan, and I'm talking to you in the afternoon here in South Africa. I'm all the way in a big city of gold called the Johannesburg, and it's a sunny day. It's still summer here by us, and at the end of January I decided, my New Year's resolutions are still in place, so why not just take advantage of that and go with it? So you're listening to Old and Jaded, and the reason I really went with this title or this topic was due to the fact that at heart, and what I've done for very many years since I can remember, is be a creative. And I've neglected it for a very long time. Life gets in the way, as the old excuse is. Also, you don't always have the direction that you'd like to go into, so you play around with a lot of things, you keep going, and then eventually, eventually you decide, hey, when are you actually going to take the step in the direction that you'd like to go into? So, for a very long time, I still don't really know. Does anyone actually know what is going on in the world? But especially for me, it's been a long time coming. I have a background in music. I studied music at the University of the Witwatersrand, or Wits. I'm a Witsie man. Kudu. And for a very long time, I have had a sort of guilty conscience due to the fact that I really didn't know where I was going, and I just came to the realization that at some point, you're going to run out of time. I'm in my 30s now, and I just turned 31 last year, turning 32 this year. And what better time and what better way to actually go about this? And yeah, so this is why we're here. And I'm hoping for whoever is going to listen to this, and whoever will be listening to this for years to come, that whatever words I'm going to be saying here today will sort of encourage you to take that leap, take that step, and become a creative, especially for those of us who are living a mundane existence, or you feel that nothing really makes sense to you, all of these things accumulate eventually, and you just start going through the humdrum of the rat race, and it's just another day, it's another dollar. So that's really what this is about. Now, the title, I guess, came to me very randomly. I was just listening to the radio on my commute from work. I used to love listening to Jacaranda, which is a radio station on 94.2, and a couple of people on there, or the radio hosts on there, really have quite the great personalities. It's very warm, it's very home brewed vibes, and I think one of the presenters mentioned the fact that he now has become old and jaded. And I think that was sort of the seed that was implanted in me at the time. And I thought, hey, maybe someday I can use that. Maybe someday I can actually maybe write a song about it, because I think at the end of the day, we do really become quite old and jaded, jaded or cynical, shall I say. And I do believe that I did quite become quite cynical at some point in my life, because, I mean, you start, or shall I not say you start, but I really did start becoming quite negative. I felt myself becoming quite negative, be drawn into a negative space, and that negative space doesn't allow for, or doesn't give you the insight or the foresight to understand where you're going, because it clouds your judgment, it clouds your day, and eventually all you see is the grind, the in and out, the 9 to 5, and that was not enough for me, because obviously, as I mentioned to you before, this was something that I didn't really see myself doing in 10 years' time. What I really wanted to do was to be whatever it would be, a performer. At heart, I really am a musician. I did pursue and studied a couple of instruments, and I also do believe myself to be quite the singer. But I never really pursued that, and I think the reasons why we don't do these things is because of fear. And I, to this day, still have a lot of fear, even though it is, even though the fear is actually unsubstantiated sometimes. Me being an overthinker leads you to actually becoming, being an overthinker leads you eventually to becoming very, I don't know what the word is. It leads you to becoming.
It was at this moment that Nay knew he fucked up, but not to worry, he will be back shortly.
All right, so let's continue. I mean, at this point, I really just think I'm just going to do the damn thing just to get it started, because sometimes that's what you have to do, because this is actually crazy for me. I've always thought about doing it. I actually wanted to start. I actually wanted to start this on Saturday. That was my deadline, and I was like, okay, today, was Saturday a couple of days ago, I'm going to start this. Then you get distracted, but you also allow those distractions to come through, because why do you allow those distractions to come through? Because then you don't have to do what you set out, or you set out for yourself to do, which is called procrastination. And those things also tie into being an overthinker and being filled with fear. So I'm going to give myself quite the pat on the back, give myself a little bit of a congratulations that I've actually started this, and I'm going to make an effort to continue to do this throughout this year, especially. But we're going to take it day by day, And right now I'm starting it as a solo, because you can be the Beyonce, but sometimes when you're the Destiny's Child, it just helps you grow a little bit better, So eventually, if you guys, as my subscribers and my listeners, start growing, you can let me know if you would like to collaborate. I would love that, because I'm quite a little bit of the introvert, and being an introvert, you really do you feed off of your internal energy. I mean, you don't need the social environment. But what's great about being an introvert is that when you do have extroverted people, you sort of use them as your scapegoat, to a certain extent, which then allows for them to do a lot more of the talking, and you are just giving your little bit of your 2 cents here and your 2 cents there. That really does enhance the conversation, because I love people, not gonna lie, but only to a certain extent. I only have so much bundled energy from until I get depleted. So until I need a recharge. So I'm not really the social kind of person, although I do love being sociable at certain points, but not all the time, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, we're just going to do this thing, and today it's just more of an unscripted introduction today, just so that we could get to know each other. You can get to know me. But actually, I'm enjoying this very much. It's actually quite cool, and also it's not a bad day outside as well. Quite sunny. So, if you haven't gone outside and you're feeling a bit blue, they say that going outside barefoot is a great thing. So, what that allows you to do is to connect, us being beings of energy and beings that came from energy and from the stars. Us going outside and being barefoot on, let's say, just going onto the grass. I know that we're always wearing shoes, and not all of us have great looking feet, man, but that is called earthing. It's getting in touch with Mother Earth, with Mother Nature, and realigning and readjusting yourself to that energy. And that allows you to feel a lot better. Also, getting those rays of sun outside helps you feel a lot better. So, I really want to use this platform as a way of reaching out, and also just to use it as therapy to a certain extent as well. Because I mean, talking out loud really does voice your inner thoughts, and listening back to yourself also helps you to understand who the fuck you actually are. Pardon my French over there. But yeah, so this is the journey that we're going to be taking. And eventually, I mean, I'll be covering quite a few topics. A lot of them probably will be centered around language and accents, and because I'm quite the advocate for language. I love language. I love accents. Ever since I was a child, I used to imitate and mimic people, as I would call it today, impersonate or do an impression of people. So I would really like to hear your thoughts on those things in the comments. And but for the four, wow, for the my mind is going on a little bit of a brain fart. But for the most part of today's podcast, it's more of an introduction to who I am, where I've come from, because you're going to probably see me coming out of the blue. But my name is Nay Malan, which is also something I created quite a while ago to become my persona, my alter ego, if you will. And that actually draws from my maiden name. So when I was born all the way back, all the years ago in 1991, I wasn't actually born with my current surname, but I was actually born with my mother's surname, because my parents were unmarried at the time. Oh my gosh, the scandal. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I don't really believe in those traditional institutions. So I was known as Malan, which was my mother's surname, and I really, which was my mother's maiden name or maiden surname, and I wanted to sort of pay homage to them, or to that part of my family, because I really do find myself being a lot more or enjoying their company a lot more than anyone else, if I were say, when I am in their company. And also those people, they come from a small town in the Western Cape called Riversdale. That's where I come from. That's where I was born. And they're very humble. They keep to themselves, which I appreciate. But when they do eventually, socialize with you, it's great. And there's no snarky remarks. There isn't any bad vibes or bad energies coming from them. And my memories and of them, whenever I've been with them, as have always been great. And I guess that's why I wanted to pay homage to them. It's because of the fact that you learn a lot more and you feel a lot more welcomed into their spaces. There's no haughty vibes, shall I say, for lack of a better word, coming from them. They're quite humble. The humility is real and palpable. And that is where you really want to be. And that's where my name came from. And now the first part, Nay, which I've sort of rewrote in a name form, but it comes from the French, which is N-double-E with I think it's cute, it's an accent on the first E, if I'm not mistaken. So that really means, so if Nay comes before that surname, which means that woman's surname used to be that specific surname. So I've just given myself that name because I can, And also, just speaking of the French, I have quite a love for the French language. I've never been to France. I've never been anywhere where the French language is spoken, and there's quite a number of French-speaking countries in Africa. But I don't know if as long as I can remember, I guess I've had that love, that affiliation, and that sort of pull towards this language. And so I guess that's why I decided to do that. And so that's my name. I am a 31-year-old mixed race, or as we call it here, colored in South Africa, a person who looks quite Indian as well. I was born all the way back in 1991, and being 31 years old now is quite life-changing, I would say. So, yeah, that's my story. So I'd really like to get to know a lot of you in the comments. I mean, I'm only starting this today, which is the 31st of Jan 2023, and that's part of my goals, right? To start creating again, because I think it's important. It's important, especially for people who deem themselves to be creatives and creators, that they do create art. And I want to use my voice as that platform because for the longest time, people have told me and given me those accolades that I do have a great voice, and it is a voice for radio. So why not, use this platform and create my own platform for this purpose? And I mean, it's not a bad thing to start acknowledging that you have certain talents and certain gifts that have been bestowed upon you, and you need to start honing in on it, because it's one thing to really have talent, but it is completely a different thing to not practice that, to not practice your talent, to not go into and venture into trying to upskill yourself, shall I say. Because, I mean, there's a lot of talented people, but it's not always the talented people that become successful, if I can put it that way. There's a lot of talented singers out there, but you'll find that it's not always the talented singers that become successful, if you know what I mean. If we just look at the receipts Look at the proof out there. I mean, some of the music that has been being put out today is completely not my taste, should I say. It is not my taste because I mean, if you just look back at sort of let's take just a couple of decades ago. I mean, the 80s has great music. That sound is unmistakable. You know, let's look at the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. Even if you look at, I mean, jazz coming out about the 30s, there was something about it. There was an internal connection between the music and the artist or the musician. Whereas I don't know, today's music, I mean, really, the let's say from the 2010s onward, it's really taken a dive, and I don't really find myself, appreciating that. We can appreciate the artistic expression, shall I say, but I do not think that it has the same gravitas, so it doesn't have the same amount of pulling power that the musicians of previous generations and decades have had. But that's on music. And I mean, but what I'm saying is at the end of the day, it is not really about how talented you are, but it is really about how or what you do with it and how you cultivate it to eventually become something that you will be proud of, but also will catapult you into where you would like to be. Okay. So I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to myself because, yeah, it is something that I have not done for a very long time. I mean, I used to be my major in music was, well, I was a classical musician, first of all. And I was a classical musician, and my instrument over there was clarinet. So I have two clarinets at home that I haven't played for probably 5 years, going on 5 years now. And I mean, it really wasn't my favorite instrument. I just did it because I was good at it. And I had, in classical music, you have certain grades and levels that you achieve. And I chose that instrument because it was the best way at the time in 2010 when I was applying at Wits to get in. But I actually had a bigger love the for the piano, and also for singing, which I never really pursued. So clarinet really was the instrument. I majored in it. I was in the classical music realm, which on the other hand, I did mention that today's pop music genres and music is great. I mean, sorry, not that great, but I do believe that those kinds of musicians are way better people than a lot of the classical musicians that I had to deal with in the past, because majority of the classical world, shall I tell you, are not great people. Those people are snobs. Those people are condescending. They're patronizing. And I think that's one of the reasons why I also just fell by the wayside. I didn't want to associate with them. I didn't know why I needed to go into their world, because in the classical world, if I can give you an example, you have to be perfect. Perfection is not only what they strive for, but they feel that it can be achieved, which I completely disagree with. Perfection is not something that you can achieve. There is no such thing as perfection. You can strive to become better than what you were before, and you can sort of fine tune your craft to a point where you are an expert in it, but you will never become perfect. Reason being is that there will always be someone better than you within what you do. So if you were perfect, that means that no one else, or that you would be really be set the precedent, or you would be the benchmark for that certain thing. So that is why I really didn't fuck with classical musicians. Come on, you know, because these the sort of snarky remarks. It was the criticism. I love that people say, oh, we're giving you positive critique. But in my opinion, it was not critique, it was criticism. You know, breaking down other people is not great. And in opposition to that, I was also surrounded by a lot of jazz vocalists and jazz musicians and jazz artists who were sort of the opposite side of the spectrum, shall I say. And on the other on that side of the spectrum, what they really did was they allowed, or there was a lot more artistic freedom and artistic license to be who you wanted to be. And I always wanted to be part of that world, but being the person that I am, who's someone that doesn't like to sort of give up on one thing and then move on to something else, which in retrospect I should have probably done. I just continued and ventured on and completed my classical music tuition, but obviously majoring more in composition, which is something that is a completely different conversation, which we can probably have in another episode. But in the jazz world, really, there is that idea and that feeling that they welcome everyone. You know, they allow you to be who you want to be. They invite collaboration, and if I mean, obviously this is different for every person that is out there, but they allow you to sort of make those mistakes, and also they welcome mistakes, because apparently mistakes within jazz gives a certain texture and a certain color to the music as well. So that is my take on that. I mean, this is my opinion, you know. Opinion is like an asshole. Everyone has one. You don't have to take it as fact, but that is just my experience of the classical world. And I think that eventually, maybe eventually drove me to not pursue that. And for a very long time, I think I cut off my inner child from my artistic expression or wanting to create. So I think this is why it's taken me so long, you know. I sort of left Johannesburg, having been a music theory lecturer at the Academy of Sound Engineering in Auckland Park in Johannesburg. And I always like to tell the story that I ran away. I left Joburg, I ran away from Joburg, and I went home again to Riversdale, where I pursued something. Well, I didn't even know what I was pursuing. I just went for whatever was available, because at the time you needed to make money. So I went on and actually just took whatever job was available. So, and that's where I went into a completely different field. I became a tasting host at a gin distillery, but eventually that 5 years later would be the stepping stones and the building blocks to where I find myself now, which ultimately I've realized that I was basically doing the same thing. I was educating people, I was teaching people, I was being the facilitator, the host, as you like to be. I love the spotlight. Well, I came to realize that, you know, actually, let's be honest with ourselves, I actually love the spotlight. And it's something that a lot of people teach you not to be, you know, because I think there is a fine line between being conceited and arrogant, but also sort of making yourself smaller than what you are, eventually you start forgetting what you are capable of and forgetting that there are certain attributes and certain parts of yourself that are being diminished because of the fact that we have to adhere to what society expects of us. So I think now, after 31 years on this planet, I've come to realize that you have to sometimes be your own cheerleader. Like, even though people, I mean, a lot of people have cheered me on and, told me, why are you not pursuing these kinds of things? But at the end of the day, I didn't pursue it because there was a little voice inside of my head that said, hey, you're not good enough, you know? What if you make a mistake? What if you go on the stage and you flop? You're never gonna live that down. Basically, that's the little voice. We all know the voice that's inside our heads. It's a little white lady. No, I'm kidding. I don't know why it would be a little white lady, but anyway, in our heads, it's a little Karen. She's telling you, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to pursue this? Huh? But eventually, you have to take ownership of yourself, and you have to be like, listen, I'm good at this, I can do this. There's no one else that will do what I do. There might be other singers out there might be other fine artists out there might be other dancers out there might be there might be other lawyers out there, but no one else is you. No one has your personality. No one has your experience. And through those experiences, that will mold you into this instrument and weapon that has never been seen before. And I think that's what I'm also going to do. And so watch this space. Watch this fucking space, bitch. Is what I'm saying. Because I think it's been too long that I've left things dormant. And I believe that it's time to see what I'm capable of. So we're putting it out there, we're manifesting it, we're throwing it out there, we're letting it go, and we're seeing what comes back. Because this is the only way, is to do the damn thing. So thank you for joining me here on Old and Jaded. As I said, my name is Nay Malan. Please feel free to like this podcast. I will eventually start, I'll see where other channels I can put this onto. Eventually I'll add some video to this so that you guys can see who I am and what I look like. But obviously you can see me in my little profile, or my, what do you call it, display picture or profile picture. Please subscribe to the channel, and please comment if you have a comment, if you made it all the way through to the end of this video. I'll also post a lot of my social media links down there, and I look forward to getting to know each and every one of you. So thank you, and goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nay Malan. See you soon on Old and Jaded.